Welcome to 5 Years Sober, Part 2. I can't go back. See, because the next major decision I made to stay sober was moving into an old, rundown roadside motel with three other adult addicts in my room. That may not seem like progress, but for me, it certainly was. Because after returning to treatment and completing another stretch of care, I could not keep pretending I was going back to my old life and somehow making different decisions inside of it. No, my apartment had been cleaned. My daughter was pregnant with her baby, and with her baby daddy, they moved in, they scrubbed the walls, the floors, everything. Why? Because the cigarette smell had gotten that bad, it was in the walls. The apartment looked different. My life had not been rebuilt. No, I was still on FMLA from work. I did not have a stable routine waiting for me. I had treatment, I had IOP, I had therapy, and many of the same conditions that existed before I went to rehab. Nothing was different. So I canceled the lease. On October 16th of 21, I moved into a sober living home in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. And sober living in New Smyrna Beach sounds super peaceful. Maybe something near the water. I can relax. It's going to be great. Palm trees, fresh air, no snow, a new beginning. No, it was an old roadside motel that had been converted into a sober living housing. Exterior doors to every pod, mismatched furniture, people sitting outside randomly, no privacy really. I pulled up, kind of looked around, and thought, this place is pretty sketchy. Then I saw the room. Particle board cubbies, counted as furniture. I shared this room, a twin bed for me, and then a full bathroom with three other men in early recovery. We all had twin beds. Privacy, gone. Solitude, gone. I did not know whether my belongings were secure or not, so no trust, very little trust. I don't know these people, so I brought one of those shelf-sized safes, with a lock, documents, jewelry, anything else that I could not afford to lose. Why? Because sober living also gave me severe toenail fungus. I started noticing it right before I had left there in February of 2022. It finally cleared up at the end of 2025 with the help from my primary care provider. Recovery saved my life. Sober living damn near cost me my toenails. That part rarely makes any anniversary post, but I unpacked everything on that first night. Every damn thing. I did not keep a bag ready by the door. I I was not waiting to see whether the accommodations approved because clearly they weren't going to. It cost me $160 a week plus food, which was a hell of a deal in New Smyrna Beach. More importantly, I had already canceled my lease. I had nowhere familiar to retreat to. I wasn't going back. That decision mattered more than whether this room was going to be comfortable. See, I stopped leaving myself an easy path back to the life that kept keeping me down. Sometimes recovery requires added support. Sometimes it requires removing access, access to substance, access to environment, access to routine, access to the version of your life where everybody else already knows what role they're supposed to play. See, I spent life choosing what felt familiar, even when familiar was destroying me. Now I had to choose something unfamiliar, enough to give change a chance. I drove for Uber and Lyft, delivered food through Uber Eats and Grubhub. I paid the weekly rent. I bought my food. I went to the same mandatory AA meeting every single day. Tuesday, we had to go to the NA meeting in the evening. Wednesday was the house meeting. That was structure I did not necessarily choose. Then I started choosing structure for myself. I found Judah Church in Orlando. Judah was what I was familiar with, Pentecostal based. Bishop Clint Brown came out of the church I grew up in, the organization. I knew people there. The music, undoubtedly incredible. The ministry, this preaching spoke a language that was already within my bones. This felt like home. So every Sunday, I drove from New Smyrna Beach to West Colonial in Orlando. Every Monday, eventually, I made that drive again for worship practice. See, I joined the worship team and stayed until my counseling internship eventually took my Sundays away. Then in late November 21, I began my clinical mental health counseling master's program. Look at what that week had become: daily AA meetings, Tuesday NA meetings, Wednesday house meeting, Sunday church, Monday worship practice, driving strangers and delivering food, graduate school, sharing a room with three other addicts in an old motel, trying to protect my belongings, trying to protect my sobriety, trying to figure out who I was without alcohol. That was early recovery. No movie montage here. Not waking up every day flooded with gratitude. Not sitting by the beach discovering myself. This was repetitive, inconvenient, crowded, kind of gross at times, humbling beyond all get out, sometimes boring as hell, but boring began to feel safer than chaos. See, structure did not solve every problem I had, but it made it less likely that one bad hour could decide the rest of my life. When your mind is screaming for relief, structure has already made some decisions for you. So you know where you are supposed to be. You know who is expecting you. You know what happens next. At first, I borrowed the structure. The sober house told me where to be. The meetings told me when to show up. School gave me deadlines. The worship team expected me at practice. Over time, I began building structure of my own. And see, that's one of the differences between sobriety and recovery. Sobriety said to me, listen, don't drink today. Recovery asked, what kind of life makes drinking less necessary today? I needed people. I needed faith. I needed music. I needed work. I needed purpose, accountability, medical and mental health care, and a distance from the life I kept trying to return to. Was that easy? No. No. But calling all of it hard does not quite tell exactly the truth either. A lot of it was simply unfamiliar. What do I mean? Unfamiliar people, unfamiliar routines, unfamiliar responsibility, unfamiliar peace. And when chaos is familiar, peace feels suspicious. Recovery required me to stay long enough for unfamiliar to stop feeling unsafe. So, what are you willing to give up? Not just talking about the substance. What environment keeps pulling you backward? What relationship keeps giving you an excuse? What routine keeps putting you close to the thing you say you want to leave? What familiar life are you protecting because unfamiliar one scares you? What help are you willing to get? What structure are you willing to accept before you know how to build your own? What are you willing to do repeatedly when nobody is clapping for you? I mean, I unpacked everything in a sketchy converted motel because I already decided I wasn't going back. Was that glamorous? Absolutely not. Was it possible? Sometimes recovery looks like a beautiful new beginning. Sometimes it looks like particle board cubbies, a shelf size safe, mandatory meetings, and toenail fungus. Unpack anyway. Presence before progress.
That was part 2 of the 4-part series. If you need to, go back and watch part 1. Stay tuned for part 3.